Yo, YouTube, what's good? It's Aeghis. In this video, I'm actually going to be doing a 10.2 PvP arena tier list. We're going to be ranking the classes from S to D tier. Alright, let's start off the video with rogues. Sub-rogue, I'm definitely going to put in S tier because sub-rogue, quite simply put, has just a flat out better toolkit than any other class in the game. You know, if played to the highest level, sub-rogue will be able to just win games based off of the toolkit alone. I do think that sub-rogue is very difficult to play because the more power you have, obviously, like the saying, it comes with more responsibility too. Like, you got to be able to use all those tools correctly. I do think sub-rogue has an easy aspect to it. Like, some matchups, it feels like you can make a million mistakes and still win because you just outclass some other people. But sub-rogue, definitely S tier, because when played to the highest level, you can absolutely just dominate and win any game. I think Calvish in this most recent solo shuffle tournament in the Void GG thing, he went like 17-1 into some of the best players in the world. Now, when it comes to the other two specs, I have played a little bit of Outlaw and Asa RMP. I do think Outlaw Rogue is very strong. I definitely don't think it's as strong as sub-rogue, but I think if sub-rogue ever got nerfed, Outlaw Rogue could easily replace it. I think Outlaw Rogue does pretty decent consistent damage. However, I think Outlaw is very hard rotationally to pull off. I am debating putting it in S tier, but I think just to keep, yeah, I think I will put it in S tier because I do think it is a really good class, and it has a lot of really good comps, obviously, because it's rogue, so you can play RMP. I think rogue lock is like the other comp that you really have is outlaw, and I think Destro locks are really strong right now. So you have rogue lock and you have mage lock, both with either druid or priest. So I think you have a lot of options. I think it's very good. If the meta ever changes, I could see outlaw definitely rising up and being the strongest of the three rogue specs. But now we have assassination. Asa, I also think is very good, but I wouldn't put it on the same tier as outlaw and sub. Asa rogue is just the squishiest of the three specs. Sub rogue, you know, they can use every single one of their tools aggressively to win games. So defensively, they're still going to be pretty immortal with the cloak, evasion, double vanish. I think the double vanish and the double step are what makes sub-rogue very hard to kill. And then you also have outlaw, just very high stamina. You're farming your cooldowns back. Asa doesn't really have that kind of defensive capability. It's still capable of putting out decent offensive pressure, but it just doesn't have the survivability of the other two. And I think that makes it lack in a certain area. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Alrighty, so now let's go over the hunter specs. First, we have BM Hunter. So BM Hunter, I'm gonna put in S tier because BM Hunter is very good right now. Does a lot of damage. You basically just summon the whole zoo. I'm not really sure. I haven't played BM Hunter myself. All I know, every time I fight a BM Hunter, they have a lot of pets that they're gonna be summoning, and the damage feels in line with what you would want for this season in like the current tuning and stuff. It feels like it kind of fits the current tuning, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. As for comps with BM Hunter, I'm not really sure what people are playing with it. However, I think it is very versatile because a lot of people play it in shuffle. Haven't really seen it too much in threes. However, in shuffle, like I said, I've seen a lot of different comps being played, and it still feels very strong. Now, when we compare it to the other two specs, the other two hunter specs have dipped a little bit this season, I think. I haven't seen any marksman hunters. I think they did get a lot of nerfs going into 10.2. Previously, they were S tier by a lot. Now, I think they're probably a lot weaker than that. I would say maybe even B. I'm not really sure about either of these specs because I haven't seen them this season, actually. I think they have dropped off quite a bit. Survival Hunter does have a nice 4-set, I believe, and then MM actually got a recent buff, which might bring them back up. But honestly, for now, I think I'm just gonna put them both in B tier because, like I said, I think BM is just so far ahead of the other specs that it would take a lot to put these two ahead of BM, or it would take a big nerf to BM to put these two ahead. All right, now let's look at warriors, I suppose. So Arms Warrior, I think, is very good. I think it has a lot of comps that you can play. I've seen Ret Warrior do really well. I've seen Turbo do pretty well. Whenever you face them in I think in Shuffle, it is like very lobby dependent, and then I think in twos, Arms Warrior is very strong. I think Warrior has the comps, it has the power, it has the damage, it has the defensives to be played to the top of the ladder, so I will put it in S tier. For Fury Warrior, they did get a lot of buffs, but I still don't see any Fury Warriors at all. I think maybe the damage is there. I'm not really sure what's going on with Fury Warrior. Like I said, I haven't seen a single one. I could even put it here in the not played section. But I think I'm gonna reserve that for tanks. So yeah, I think we might just have to put Fury Warrior probably in the B or C tier. I think we'll probably just end up putting it in C because I haven't seen a bunch of hunters, but I have seen some. I actually just straight up haven't seen any Fury Warriors ever. I think putting them in a C in the tier below hunters for that reason would be pretty good. All right, so now we can get a little bit into DKs. DKs, I'm gonna just go ahead and put Unholy in S tier. Unholy has really good damage. They are a little bit squishier compared to some of the other classes in S tier, but like I said, the damage really makes up for it. Every time there's a DK in the lobby, I mean, they're just hopping the dam. They have a lot of decent comps available to them as well. Pretty good in shuffle, pretty good in 2s, really good in 3s. Like I said, I think Unholy DK is really strong. Every time I fight one, they're always top dam. They have a lot of different comps, like I said. I just think that it definitely outclasses the other DK specs, which leads us into Frost DK. Frost DK, I definitely don't think it's D tier. I would probably put it in B tier, and I'll explain why I'm not going to rank it lower. Is because there is a comp you can play. It's like Draco Cleave. You play with a Dev Evoker and you do one-shot setups and you run in between. There is like one team playing this on the ladder and they're pretty high rated with it. So you have the ability to get high rated as a Frost DK. It's definitely not as OP as some of these other specs. Like, you really only have one composition, and that one composition is a little bit cheesy. It's a setup based comp where you play for Grip Blinds, Deep Breath with the wall talent on the Deep Breath, and you just basically try to one-shot people, but you can get high rating with it, so I would put it in the B tier. Alright, so let's go ahead and rank Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter has been a big question this season because it started off extremely OP. Like, if I could, I would make another tier and I would put Demon Hunter as the #1 OP spec, but it has gotten some nerfs actually. So I would still, I think actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna put it on A tier. With Acid Rogue. I think DH is still very powerful. They did kind of move around a lot of the power. There was like some crazy thing going on with the one talent that would modify your chance of hitting the target like 7 times, and that was causing crazy essence break crits on your death sweep. They got like a decent defensive buff, and then there was just a lot of damage because the tree I think got worked around a little bit so you could take more damage talents, just better builds in general. But it did get a little bit nerfed and tuned now to the point I think it's been 3 nerfs at this point, like 3 sets of nerfs, maybe 2. However, I still, like I said, I think it's strong. I think you can still get really high rated as it. You have some decent comps. It's a lot better in shuffle now because of the 2-minute metamorphosis. I think it has a lot going for it still, and it's still a relatively strong spec, so I'm going to put it in the A tier. Alright, Feral Druid. I think Feral is very strong damage-wise and CC-wise. I think defensively you have to play very well. You can't tank too much damage. Knowing when to go bear is also very important. I don't think it's a very easy spec to play. However, I think that it is still very strong, like I said. So I'm going to put it in the A tier. I think if you play the right comp, you're still going to be able to get extremely high rated. I actually play with a Feral on my Mage. I play FMP mainly, and I think that comp is extremely strong. So you have that available to you to, climb the ranks. Don't see too many Feral Druids in Shuffle. I think they are also good in 2s. I know a couple of my friends who are high rated as Feral in 2s. So I think the potential is there for Feral. So I'm going to leave it in the A tier. Alright, so let's get into the 2 dragon specs now. We have Evoker and we have Devastation Evoker. I'll be saving the healers towards the end. Yeah, we have Evoker and Devastation. I do think has seen a significant decrease in gameplay. Haven't really seen any Evokers in Shuffle. Haven't seen any in 3s. Really, no one's even playing the spec anymore, thankfully. However, I don't know if it's completely dead. I feel like I kind of want to put it in C tier with Fury Warrior. I'm not 100% on that. I actually kind of, yeah, I think that works well because I haven't seen any Evokers. And I also haven't seen any Fury Warriors. I think the spec is just not being played by many people. Not sure why that is. I believe that it's just not as strong as it was in the previous patch. So now let's talk about Devastation Evoker a little bit. Devastation actually got some decent buffs. I mean, this class is a little bit one-dimensional, like with Disintegrate basically being your only source of damage, and Eternity Surge, like Dragon Rage, that kind of stuff. But really, it's a Disintegrate spamming class. I think I'll probably put it up here with Frost DK because you actually do have that comp available to you, Frost DK Devastation Evoker. I think that comp is capable of taking you to high ratings. I think Devastation is probably B tier in like something like Shuffle, just because the defensive capability of the class is still lacking a little bit. But honestly, for the amount of damage they're doing, I think maybe B tier is definitely going to suffice, because like I said, they also have that one comp available to them, which allows them access to the top of the ladder. So yeah, we'll just leave that how that is. All right, next up we have Ret Paladin. Ret Paladin, I think the class is pretty balanced. I think you have a lot of team utility, you have a lot of defensives, you have really decent damage on a short cooldown with long range, you have decent comps available to you with like Ret Warrior. So yeah, I think Ret definitely needs to just go on the S tier. I think Ret is definitely on the S tier there. Pretty decent in shuffle too. I think you do really well in melee lobbies. Can struggle a little bit into casters, but you could also like get a small map, and then that lobby is way more playable. I think Ret just has a lot going for it, so I'm gonna leave it in the S tier. Now we have let's see, Windwalker Monk. We'll do that. Yeah. So Windwalker Monk, I think, is a very strong spec. I think it's very strong. It has a lot of ways to avoid damage. It has a lot of good defensives. It has crazy burst, decent, really good mobility. Trying to think of the comps that Windwalker plays. I don't know if Windwalker actually has an insane comp right now. I think it is pretty decent with a lot of stuff, but I think that there is no other class that plays with Windwalker and thinks like, oh yeah, Windwalker is my like best comp that I have available to me. So I think for that reason, even though I do think Windwalker is insane, I do want to put it on the A tier, because I just don't think that the comps that it has available to it are going to be the best comps for the other class as well to play with it. So yeah, I'll leave it here in the A tier. Let's do the lock specs real quick, actually. So we have Affliction, Demo, and Destro. Let's start with Demo, because I think Demo is the best out of the three. I'm gonna put it in the S tier. I do think that Demo is very strong. Your pet's doing crazy damage. You're summoning the whole army. Your damage isn't really tied to Tyrant anymore. You have a lot of decent comps available to you. You synergize really well with the best healer in the game. It's very good in shuffle. If you go into the shuffle leaderboard, there's a lot of Demo locks, I believe. Yeah, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a couple Demo locks. There's a lot of Demo locks. A lot of Demon Hunters too. Demo is really strong. Probably the best out of the three. Now that brings us into the other lock specs. So I do think Destro is a tier below Demo, but I do think Destro is really insane. So keep in mind, when I'm saying something is A tier, it is still really good. I just think that Demo is better right now. So I do want to put it in a tier above Destro, but I think Destro is just as good. Destro is really good as well, in the same comps too. So like Mage Lock, for example, is probably the best one. Frost Mage Destro or Frost Mage Demo is very good. Let's go ahead and talk about Affliction now. Affliction, I think, isn't awful, but it kind of feels like it deserves a spot like on the B tier. I think Affliction is just a little bit squishier than the other specs, has a lot harder time to get its damage out, and then I think if you just put Affliction in the really good lock comps, it's just infinitely worse than the other two specs, and for that reason it's going to go in the B tier. All right, so now we have Ellie and Enhance. I think Ellie is extremely strong. I kind of want to put it up here with Demo locks, because I think Ellie is just it synergizes very well with the other casters in the game, so you could play a lot of different comps in that regard, and it synergizes really well with all the really good healers. I think it's really good in solo shuffle. It doesn't really do too well in twos, but no one really judges or makes tier lists based around twos, so I don't think that should be really taken into consideration here. But yeah, I think Ellie is really strong. That the instant damage, they have a decent tier set. They have gotten a little bit tankier with the addition of like Burrow, which kind of helps solve that gap, I suppose, whenever you would wall and then you kind of just have nothing left. Like now you at least have Burrow to help you reposition. I think Ellie, yeah, like I said, just strong spec, strong, good class, man. Now we have Enhance Shaman. So Enhance, I was actually fighting an Enhance recently playing Turbo Cleave, and they were playing a different build. They were playing a build that was, I think, more consistent damage based, so not based around randomly proccing Ascendants and one-shotting. And they were topping damage, and we were playing like Outlaw Arcane, which is a very high consistent damage composition, and he was keeping up with our dam. We even lost a couple games into them. I've fought them a couple times in shuffle, and it's not so bad. But yeah, I think A tier is a perfect spot for enhance because you do have that. You have turbo cleave available to you. It's a very good comp, allows you to get high rating, and the damage I think on enhance is extremely strong. I think it maybe even could be stronger than this. I'm just not sure yet. So now we have Shadow Priest here. So Shadow Priest I think is probably gonna go, it's hard to say. I kind of want to put it in the A tier because I don't think it's completely awful. I think the damage is still there. I don't know what there really is to say about Shadow Priest. I think it has a decent, like it synergizes okay with these like Ellie. It synergizes okay with Demo, like S play and stuff. You can play it even with the Unholy DK. Don't really see WPS too much. Maybe Sub-Rogue SP could be insane. Like I said, I think it works really well with these classes, but it's just not the top dog's class's first pick to want to play with. So I don't think it's has a spot on the S tier, especially because the damage can be a little bit more difficult to get off. You lost MD basically, so MD is now like a 2-minute CD unless you take a PvP talent for it. Previously, last season I would put SP on S tier. I think it is a lot weaker now though with in 10.2, so I'm gonna put it on the A tier. All right, so now we got Boomkin. So Boomkin I think is still really freaking, like I would even put Boomkin like up here with Sub-Rogue. I think Boomkin is really strong. It's pretty much always really close to winning all the tournaments. Is really good in solo shuffle, really good in threes. Boomy's just overall really strong. Hasn't really seen too many nerfs recently. There was like a couple a long time ago trying to target fast clone and stuff, and there was a little bit that was like targeting the damage. And then with 10.2 you kind of just got Shroom for free, and then you got like Rattled Stars got changed a little bit, and really the power level hasn't shifted. So I think Boomy has been pretty much at that point where it's at right here for this entire last season and so far this season. So Boomy, very, very good pick. Works really well with Sub-Rogues, works really well with, well, it works probably pretty good with Outlaw. It basically works really good with like any of these specs, really. I think it's just a very versatile, very good class. A lot of control, a lot of burst. Now, the moment of truth, the Mage, the completely unbiased take that I'm about to unleash. I just want to say real quick, the strength of the specs is definitely Arcane, then Frost, then Fire. Now, in terms of putting them on the tier list, I do want to put Arcane in S tier, but I feel like people will give me shit and just be like, Arcane is an S tier, you just make it S tier. I feel like that's been a thing on Mage for a long time, where it's been really strong at a high level and then very not so strong at a mediocre to average level. I think the tier list should be based around the compositions that has available to it. So I want to put Arcane and I want to put Frost Mage both in S tier, because I think Frost with Sub-Rogue, Frost with Demolock, Frost with Destro, Arcane with Outlaw, Arcane with Sub, Arcane with either of the lock specs are all really, really good compositions that can get you high, like, really high rated on ladder. I know I have a lot of classes in the S tier, but that's kind of why WoW feels so fun to me right now, because a lot of different specs are really good and it feels like a lot of things are really viable. Like look at all the specs that we have in the like A is still really strong too. So like look at how many strong specs there are. There's like pretty much everything is strong except for a couple outliers. I want to put Arcane and Frost both on S tier, and then Fire I will put on A tier. I think Fire, it did get the glass cannon nerf slash buff, but it's definitely just a nerf. Fire is, it still kind of has the giant issue that it had before, where glass cannon is like a huge trade-off for offensive capabilities. I would say even before 10.2, Fire had really, really strong offensive capabilities that kind of made it worth losing that much defensive capabilities. Like you had to play really well defensively, but now it kind of feels like the gap is like, it's still the same amount of risk, but the reward is just way worse now because of the glass cannon nerf to like Ignite and Fireball. So I think the spec has definitely tanked a little bit in terms of viability, and then with Frost being so good now, like with Frost Bomb and just like all the added damage it has now with the Frostbolt build and whatnot, I would put Frost. Actually, I think I'm gonna put Frost here. I think think I'm actually going to put Frost on A tier because it kind of reminds me a lot of a Destro lock in terms of viability, where the damage is really good, but you have to be able to get it off. And that can be a little bit difficult when being trained. So it's still really good, has amazing comps available to it. However, I think it is, I do want to say that it's A tier specialization because of it can be kind of a difficult spec to play, especially with these high haste having specs like Arcane and Frost. There's a lot of GCD potential to get wrong, and there's also like, yeah, like I said, it's kind of a hard spec to play, but it has a really good composition available to it with Demo Frost and Destro Frost. And then Arcane, I want to elaborate a little bit on the S tier pick. I think Arcane is the most versatile of the mage specs. So whenever I play it in shuffle, it doesn't really matter the lobby I get, because I feel like Arcane synergizes really well actually with a lot of classes in the game right now. So in shuffle, there's kind of not a bad lobby except for like Ellie lobbies and potentially even hunter lobbies, but not, I don't know, man. I swear even Arcane does really good with hunters, and it does really good into hunters too. But now that marksman is not as relevant, because with BM you can sort of avoid the dam. So yeah, I want to put Arcane in S tier. Let me know what you guys think about that. All right, so for the healers, we have Prez Evoker. Here, let's put the tanks over here. So we have Prez Evoker, we have Holy Priest, H-Pal, Disc, Mistweaver, Resto Druid, and Resto Shaman. So it definitely comes down to Disc Priest versus Resto Druid, which one is better, and that is very difficult to tell. So I think we're actually gonna have both of these healers in the S tier. Disc and R Druid are both really good. When it comes down to which one beats one another, it's really hard to tell because there's a lot of factors in terms of compositions. R Druids have to play more for drinks, whereas priests can, it kind of feels like when you play priest into druid, you can actually, now it used to historically be like you had to play to win as a priest into a druid, but now it's your mana is so good on disc that you can actually passively out mana, and as long as you're stopping drinks, you can most of the time beat a druid, or you can even hit the druid and potentially kill them. When you're playing druid into disc, it feels like you have to it's still a PvE battle, but you have to go for drinks a lot more. You don't have that passive mana like Disc does, but you have the tools to be able to go for drinks. Like you have healing while you're AFK, AI healing, and then you have meld for drinks. You just drink when you have full hots out. So it's a little bit, I would say, yeah, like I said, it's really hard to talk about which one's better because they're both really freaking good. So I'm just gonna put them both on S tier, and then we can kind of go into the other healers. So I think Mistweaver is probably going to be the A tier healer. Mistweaver, Casted, and Fistweaver is both really good. Lots of CDs, really good throughputs. I think what it comes down to mainly with Mistweaver is the amount of cooldowns they have, though. They have like Revival, Port While Stunned, Cocoon, and then they have like the Ore Master with decent mana as well. Definitely a pretty decent healer there. And then it comes down to Arsham, H-Pal, H-Priest, and Prez Evoker. So I think for this, I'm actually going to probably put H-Pal as the healer below Mistweaver. These last four healers kind of are blending into me a little bit because you don't typically see them unless it's in a very niche comp, and that's kind of why I'm ranking them a little bit lower right now, is I don't think that they have great compositions available to them right now. So I think that these healers are all kind of in the same area, and then you have H-Priest a lot lower than that. I would actually even argue that H-Priest would be like an entire tier below these two. And then Prez Evoker, really no one is even playing this spec. There's only like one dragon I'm aware of that's actually playing Prez, and then these two I see a little bit more often. So yeah, I'm kind of content with this as my final list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Keep in mind, tier lists, let me reiterate, or let me just say this because I feel like I have to. Tier lists are for fun. It's something for us as the WoW community to just have fun with and compare stuff, because that's all we're doing. We're just comparing stuff for fun. So let's keep it civil. Let me know what you guys think. I'm pretty content with this tier list. I think it's pretty accurate. Let me know what you guys think. And that's all I have. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Aeghis. And That's all I got. Peace out, YouTube.